So guys, here we are. We've arrived at Blackburn Rovers Academy, nestled here between the luscious hills of Lancashire. This Cat 1 Academy constantly punches above its weight and is a prolific player development centre. We're going to find out what the secrets are and what really goes on inside the academy. Let's go.
Just training today, some of you up with the first team. Training group for us should be the lads that are fit, so Jackson, Teddy, Joe Boggan, Dan Shaw, Nathan Dalamini, Brad, you're back with us full time now, aren't you? Yeah. Little round of applause for our Brad. Back with us, well done you, it's been a long time. So listen, we'll get through this quite quick, post-match from the weekend. You lads that played, what's your thoughts? Thought you played really well for staff. Some really good stuff, probably should have been 2 or 3 up, usual. Second half a bit more of a ding-dong. Thought definitely we did better defending our box as a team, miles better. Started seeing you, Lithers and Reese winning balls in the penalty box, so miles better. We're going to have a look at some clips on that.
There was a few times, I remember that, I'll show you the clips maybe later in the week, Dan made a couple of great 8 runs, whereas if your touch was right, you could have slid him, but because his touch was back in, he had to play off his left, and therefore the fullback was able to block the pass and we had to go back in field. So we're going about the basics of the game, your basic receiving skills, opening out off the same foot to play off the same foot. If you can't get it right, it stops opportunities for us to build through the pitch.
That's it.
Does everyone know where they're going this morning?
Listen, you've got 10 minutes to get up the top. You lads go in the first team.
My name is Dara Tuffy. I am the assistant PDP coach at Blackburn Rovers Academy. This is my 16th season coaching at the academy. Yeah, so there was a few things we had to consider this morning. Obviously we ended up with smaller numbers than we thought we would due to the first team needing some players, which is good for them. So we have a game tomorrow, so it's actually match day -1 for us today. And we played Saturday, so we had to be very careful on area size. So we tried to make it quite tight, but we wanted to work on the principle of playing forward and running forward. So we started off with some basic mannequin work, which I think is important in terms of painting the pictures for the boys so they recognise them in the game, and giving them repetition of receiving skills that they're going to need to execute it when the game starts and they're doing it under pressure. Trying to link it to our playing philosophy, which a big part is play forward, run forward. But the key for me is around the receiving skills of the players. So the first team will speak a lot that the ball needs to go on the first or the second touch. Right. So the player's body shape when they receive the ball, when we break a line, is so important that they can go forward off their second touch, or they could even play forward off their first touch, depending on the timing of the run. So I think it's important to do basic practices like that where they get real repetition and practice of basic receiving skills, which sometimes I think we can maybe neglect with the older players, and we think because they're not in the foundation of the YDP anymore we can just talk tactics, but the reality is we do it against mannequins, they get it wrong a lot. So for me that's really important to just start with that basic base, and we try and do that a couple of times a week at least.
Say that, it's obviously you talked about that, the key forward runs being the big thing. You're working off the first team plays with like a 6 and 2 8s if you like.
Yeah.
And so those timing, how important, how do you get those that understanding of that timing of that run and those different sorts of runs? You worked on those different angles, didn't you, mate?
Yeah.
Like you say, you have those almost like Bernardo Silva run, the Sterling run, that sort of thing. How do you ensure you get those sort of outcomes with the players?
Well, obviously we do a lot in the video room on that sort of stuff, so we do a lot of unit stuff. We actually went through it quite a bit this morning. We'll do quite a bit of unopposed patterns, so they recognise the timings of when to move. So when the 8 receives it in the pocket, the 7, 11, 9 know that the timing of the run's when to go. When it goes wide, the 8 knows that he has to arrive late and fast. He doesn't want to end up in there too early, offside, or he gets tracked. So again, they're sort of the key principles. Yeah, trying to arrive late and fast really, so it's harder to track. Running off the back of people. For me, the ball needs to be rolling as much as possible, so we will generally work to blocks so we know the physical outcomes will be thereabouts. So I don't like stopping it unless I need to. So in stuff like passing drills, they know the expectations, they know what's expected from them in terms of the detail. So it'll generally just be little reminders within it. If I see something I need to go in on, I'll go in. But if I can, I'll try and just coach in the stoppages. So 2-minute blocks, almost like a basketball style of coaching, really, where you're coaching in the gap. So the second session was basically, like I said, I would like to, because it's forward runs and forward passes, generally I want to work in a bigger area to give them more reps of doing that. So it was quite tight, so it was quite difficult to get the passes in. So yeah, the aim was to make 3 passes. It didn't have to make any more than 3. And then you're looking to find someone who can get to forward facing, forward runs, break the back line, onside, right timing, right way to pass. And then when they scored, passed to the goalie, they scored. And then the aim was to go back and doing it the other way. So yeah, the main principle was, well, can we play off 1 and 2 touches? Can we play central, which is again a part of the sort of DNA of the first team, and they like to play central to exploit central for out to in runners. So I thought we got quite a good reps of the principles that we were after, albeit the area space was quite tight. Similar to the passing drill, in an ideal world I wouldn't stop it at all within the 2 minutes, but there was probably 2 or 3 times when there was a really key moment where I thought, right, well, you've missed the opportunity to play forward because your scanning and receiving skills weren't right. So I felt that was important to show the whole group that, so then they, when they see that picture again, they don't miss it. Because I think a big part of this way of playing is we want to dominate the ball. Sometimes it might take 6-7 passes to get someone forward facing in an attacking area. So if they consistently miss chances to play the runners, we have to do that again. So I think it was important to highlight that.
And then tell us about that last practice there.
Yeah, so the last practice was basically an extension of the possession. The rules were the exact same. Obviously the goalies were on the ends of the possession. That's a key thing that we try and do in this modern way of playing. Now that everyone has, the goalies have to be able to play with their feet as almost an extra midfielder. So we'll always have them on the end of the possessions where we can. And then the game at the end was the exact same rules, just with goals. And instead of passing it to score, they got a chance to go and score. So it was basically a 1v1 central.
And so would that be like a sort of a standard sort of setup for a session? Would it be you start with obviously you've got your activation, but then you start with a technical, unopposed to technical, a little bit of like a possession type thing, and then into like a game sort of thing?
Yeah, generally we'll try and make sure there's a clear link throughout all the sessions if we can. We won't always do passing drills. Sometimes we'll start with just some rondo work. Again, our first team are big on the rondo work, so it's something we have to replicate because our boys get a lot of exposure quite early to go and train with the first team. So it's important that we prep them so they're ready when they go up and they know the types of sessions they're going to be going into. So we'll do generally a lot of that type of work. But like I said, I thought that linked, we could look a bit more tactical on the passing drill today, keep the load down physically. I think we ended up on about 3.5k, which is about right for a match day -1 really.
Lovely. Cheers, Darren.
Brilliant. Nice one. Thank you.
So guys, here we are, just finished watching that first session, the under-18s training. Really interesting session. We were talking to the coaches beforehand. They were talking how they like to mirror what the first team are doing, and the first team play basically with a 6 and 2 8s. So doing a lot about forward runs, those forward movement runs, like we call it silver run, that diagonal run, like behind the shoulder of the fullback. But yeah, interesting session. Also they've got a game tomorrow, so the loading there, they were quite tight on that. So the space is a bit smaller. So again, yeah, really great to see the coaches work, great personality, great technical detail, like that little passing pattern drill at the beginning, little possession into like a game as well. So yeah, really interesting to see those guys work. Thank God it's dry, no rain yet, so we're being lucky. Fingers crossed we stay the same. So yeah, we're gonna zip back inside and have a bit of lunch around half 12, 1 o'clock. We're gonna do a few interviews before that, and then we're gonna go up to the first team building, have a little look up there, have a little butchers, see Greg up there. Greg's the technical director, the sporting director. He's also been on the podcast, so really one of the girls really helped organise this for us. And then in the afternoon we've got the YDP in. And again, we're staying over the night, and then tomorrow back in here with some of the older age groups, and the day release with the YDP, and then the FP session in the afternoon. So all systems go.
My name's Stuart Jones and I'm head of the academy at Blackburn Rovers.
So Stu, tell us how long you've been here at Blackburn Rovers?
I've been here 12 years now. 12 years.
And tell us a bit about your role then. I mean, the academy manager role has evolved quite a bit, hasn't it? I think during the EPPP, maybe where, you know, in the old days, a classical academy manager might be running everything, you know, day to day. Tell us about your role and your day-to-day sort of duties, if you like?
Yeah, I think obviously the role is overseeing all aspects of the programme really, across sports science, recruitment, analysis, all the different departments, and really ensuring there's a connection and an alignment between the academy and first team in terms of developing young players, but very much it's day to day in the offices across the department, and ensuring that as an academy we're operating to a category 1 standard.
Interesting. And so we watched that. We just sat on the pitch watching that great 18 session, and Dara was talking about how they were doing a lot of stuff with 8s, forward runs with the 8s, because that's what the first team requires. And so tell us about that. One, is it real part of the key thing of the academy having that tight relation with the first team in terms of their playing philosophy? Yeah. And then how important is it getting those boys ready for that opportunity if they get it, if you like?
Yeah, I think it's massively important. I think we talk about a lot with the director of football and the first team staff around key principles and alignment through the system, because ultimately I think where we've been really successful over the last couple of seasons is transitioning players from this building up to the STC, and they have to be fully prepared in terms of style of play, key principles, what's expected of them as young individuals, and that'll be something that when they go up in that environment, it's key that the manager can see that and the director of football in terms of that they're capable of doing them roles within the team.
And I mean, what are the challenges around that? I mean, firstly, how young do you go with that? I mean, are those principles the way all through the academy, or is it just the PDP which focus on those? For example, those 8s runs, those forwards runs. I mean, how sort of aligned do you have to be with the first team, with the academy, or how autonomous is it, if you like? Yeah,
I think it's huge in PDP, because a lot of them young players, certainly over the last 2 years, have transitioned quite quickly into the senior environment. They do a lot of 11v11s. They train with the first team, so it's really important in the PDP that they have a real understanding of them principles. It's then as we move down through the system, it's sort of drip fed through. Certainly at 9s, 10s, 11s, in the foundation phase, very minimal really. It's just trying to drip feed sort of small parts of that in, but very minimal, and then it gradually builds as they go through the YDP, and certainly at 15s, 16s they'll have a real good understanding before they move into the PDP.
I mean, and also, you've been here 12 years. I mean, and the reality of professional football. Yeah. I mean, what's the challenge then with that? I mean, if there is a change at the top, as there often is within the game, then you just have to then realign with whatever comes in, and what is the the process like? Is that's that's another transition? Is that just something that's part of the game?
No, listen, it's a good point, and it's one that we've discussed at length, certainly with the board and the director of football who's just come in. I think it has to be a club philosophy in terms of the first team manager will eventually move on, right, as they do with football clubs, and then it's upon the club and the director of football to bring a new coach in, but with a belief around them principles that are in place, because we'll have spent a number of years in terms of developing players around them principles and certain types of players, that if all of a sudden we change our way of working, the principles change, the style of play, all that work that's gone on underneath becomes irrelevant. So I think there's a real understanding at the football club that if ever a new coach comes in, then they have to align to the principles that are now in place.
Interesting. And you're quite fortunate at the moment. You seem to have a first team head coach in charge who's really embracing the academy. From we're speaking to Jordan and Dara there, lots of the young guys getting lots of opportunities daily to train with the first team. Jordan's talked to me about how on the off days, the players are actually playing like in-house games with the first team as well. So tell us a bit about that, because a lot of academy managers would be incredibly jealous probably to have this this symbiotic relationship with the first team. Yeah, listen,
it's terrific. What I would say as well is that there's a real not just from the first team director of football, but the board and the owners, there's a real emphasis now on the academy, which brings pressure on us to a point, but is also in a positive sense, because we've now become fundamental to the future of the football club in terms of developing our own players from within the building. Alongside that, we're very fortunate that we have a director of football in Greg Broughton who has got a youth background. so understands youth development and the importance of developing young players. We've now got a head coach who want to work with young players and want to transition them into our first team. So I think that sort of collaborative approach from owners, board, director of football, first team staff, academy staff has been a massive positive, and I think that's why we've had so much success, certainly over the last 18 months to 2 years with that model. And young players are going up, we do 11v11s, there's a training group that go with the first team. It's a real integrated approach to youth development, which we're fortunate really.
And how, I mean, I'm imagining, you know, you're a Cat 1 club, but you're a relatively smaller club, surrounded by these big giants in the northwest, your Cities, United, Liverpool, Everton around the corner. How important is it to have a productive academy, a productive pathway for players to come in? And so I imagine, you know, so you can say to parents, look, this is what we do differently. We do actually have a pathway to the first team, right? Yeah.
Listen, there's no doubt, you know, there's some huge football clubs on the doorstep, but what I would say is that, and we're not going to be able to compete financially, we understand that, but how we compete and how we retain our best talent coming through the system is based on pathway and opportunity. And we sell that when we speak with parents and players. We actually demonstrate that through our work and day to day in terms of young players. You know, we've got 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds who are taking part in 11v11s against first team players. So we actually demonstrate that and use that really as a mechanism, I guess, to retain, recruit and ultimately develop our young players. So yeah, it's massively important and it's a huge selling point for us as a football club.
Greg Broughton, Director of Football at Blackburn Rovers.
So Greg, tell us a little bit about your role here at the club.
Yeah, it's to look after the medium-term interests of the football club, to make sure that we're always trying to plan ahead. 5 departments reporting into me, obviously coaching, the first team coaching, probably being the priority one of those 5, but alongside that, the academy, medical, analysis, recruitment, etc. So yeah, it's to oversee that process. We
watched a really great session with the 18s earlier, and the coach, we're talking about the coach, we're talking about some very tactical elements, 8 runs and stuff, saying that's what the first team coach likes. And I said, well, what happens, you know, if there's a transition at the top, where there often is at this level? They said, well, actually the idea is that there's a consistent club approach to it. Is that your thoughts that come from you in terms of that? Are you looking for coaches who can come in and bring a consistency to a club, if that makes sense?
Definitely. I think the academy is so central to what we want to do at Blackburn Rovers that we had to take a long-term perspective on it. So first of all, we had to identify the style of football we wanted to play. We then had to appoint a head coach who suited that style of football and believed in young players. And then it's up to him to develop his model within that framework. He is, and you have to allow the head coach to be as creative as possible within the framework to have success on the pitch. But what it does mean in terms of succession planning, when the day comes that Jon either has taken Blackburn to the Premier League and then gets a move beyond that, or gets a move elsewhere, then we're ready to appoint someone who can come in and fit the model, and then you're not having to start again from scratch. On the downside of that, you could say that academy players only get one way of looking at developing, but I believe that personally is the best way to try and develop young players, is to have real clarity on the framework for them to develop in.
Can you give us an idea of some elements of that framework you're talking about?
Yeah, just really, really clear. To be dominant with the ball. I know everybody says that in football, but to be dominant in the ball and have clarity on what that looks like. To be dominant without the ball as well, to be aggressive without the ball, to go and chase the ball high up the pitch, to be brave enough to try and isolate your defenders 1v1 and your attackers 1v1 and let them cope with those duels all over the pitch. And then to have real understanding of what it looks like in transition, both offensively and defensively. So that's the model. Again, it's not rocket science. I think a lot of progressive clubs are trying to do the same piece of work, but I just believe in it. When you're trying to put players into a development environment, you have to have clarity on their framework that they're going to play within, and that for me, that is the clarity that we wanted.
Interesting. And I mean, you spent a lot of your career in academy football from development. We've obviously been on the podcast, had your very interesting journey. How does that? What effect has that had on the way you approach this role? Do you think maybe different to others? People in a similar position at different clubs?
I think the journey that I went on to get to this role showed me a couple of things. That firstly, you have to stay on strategy even when things don't appear to be going right. So right now we're coming off the back of 3 defeats in the league, which have sandwiched a couple of unbelievable results in the cup where we've done fantastically with a really, really young team. But what's important now is you don't panic and say, right, back to the drawing board. You stay with that and stay with that process. But secondly, in terms of then integrating young players into the team, you have to create a framework where you can do that. You can't do that if you're carrying 30 players into a season. It's very, very hard. The managers and the head coach's job at any football club isn't just managing players 1 to 11 in the squad. That's almost the easy part. The hard part is keeping players 12 to 20, 25, 30, depending on how big your squad is, keeping those guys happy. And if you've got to make a decision about who goes on the bench, is it the 28, 29-year-old player who isn't in favour right now and is number 24 or 25 in your squad? Or is it the 17, 18-year-old who's doing really, really well, has done fantastically in 18s and 21s football and deserves that opportunity? It takes a very, very strong manager to say, I'm going to leave that 28, 29-year-old out. So if you can give the manager or head coach a framework to work within, and he believes in what young players can bring to an environment as well, then I just believe that it creates an environment for success.
And what about in terms of like what the academy does day to day? How much impact, or how much influence do you have over that in terms of? Is it more like, look, this is the framework we talked about. This is what want to happen. Are you involved in the methodology of what the academy does itself?
Yeah. No, I'm not really. No, I think it's about employing experts and letting them get on with their jobs. The framework and the big picture stuff, heavily involved with, but the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and even in fact just building the cycles, the mesocycle, the macro cycle. Right. No, employ really good coaches and trust them and believe them to get on with their work.
Yeah, interesting. Do you ever walk past a set looking at what? There's an under-9 session, I remember doing that. Is that good bringing back memories?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the under-9 and the under-8 pre-academy groups are fantastic to watch. The players just play with so much freedom. And I think what you've learned from that is, can you try and carry that on all the way through the club? So we have a head coach here who talks both in sessions and in public about wanting players to make mistakes, understanding that making mistakes is a vital part of the learning process. So it's really, really healthy that you can join that whole picture up. And we're doing some work at the club at the moment that we hope to announce over the next few weeks, where we're talking about what's the right environment, how can you create the right environment for players to learn, where we accept they have to be challenged and pushed really, really hard, but have to know that that challenge is coming from a really supportive place. Because at the moment, if I'm an under-9 player, and I've got a 1-year contract, because that's the longest contract you're allowed to give out to an under-9. The period of registration is 1 year. And at Christmas or in February, you have a bad report. Both you and the parent are sat there thinking, well, we know what's going to happen here. The writing's on the wall. How can you then ask them to be expressive and go out and make mistakes? I watched the programme about, I'm sure you saw it, about Crystal Palace and their academy, and the amount of pressure that was put on that result then, it was almost like the X factor. The player was walking in, the parents was pacing up and down outside waiting for that. And for me, that doesn't then sit alongside a learning environment. And I appreciate TV had to make it look a particular way. You and I have both been involved in it. It doesn't work exactly like that. But the point is if we want a really good learning environment, what framework can we create as a club in order to do that? And that's hopefully some of the stuff we're working on right now.
Interesting. And what about, I mean, you've worked in Norway, you worked in England, various clubs. What's unique about the community, and what's the culture around here and this sort of club as you've experienced?
I think the supporters and the key stakeholders, the board, etc. at the club really understand the importance of the academy. Jack Walker, our previous benefactor, built the academy, built the training ground, really understood the importance of that, brought experts in to help running that. And I think when I was looking at Blackburn Rovers and was that the right club for me to take this first step on my journey as a director of football, the great thing was I could come in and say, right, we're not having to start from scratch and build an academy. It's in place. You're looking at the players who had just got to I think they got to the quarterfinals of the FA Youth Cup, and you had Adam Wharton and Ash Phillips and Jake Batty and many, many others. You had a really good group in the current 21s who were around the first team already. Because it's all very well saying to a head coach, you have to promote and you have to look within before we look outside for players. But then if he looks within and goes, well, there's nobody here, it's very, very hard to carry that through. So that was very, very attractive for me.
And finally, what do you, I mean, look, this film's about football development. How do you rate success in the academy? What are you looking for in terms of, what are those key things that you're looking for to think, right, we've done a good job in the academy now?
Yeah. Well, I think you can have some benchmarks at first team level, but they're no more than that. They're measures of success. You can't use them as targets, because if you're saying to the head coach, you have to put a player in, or we'd like you to put a player in just to tick a box to say we've had this X percentage, you're just setting yourself up for fails. But you can have benchmarks of what good looks like and be honest about those and speak internally about those. But I think the most important thing for any academy journey is that you look beyond just creating footballers, and that's some of the piece that we're trying to do. You're trying to give players a really well-rounded education, and I think trying to give them a long journey in the academy as well, and being honest with them from the outset, that saying you're going to come in here, you can have a brilliant time, you're going to experience football at the very, very highest level you can do in this country and going into playing tournaments all around Europe. But at the end of it, there's no guarantee you're going to have a career from that, and that's not the outcome that we're searching for from the very beginning of this. And if you're honest with parents and have that conversation from the beginning, I think most of them then appreciate it. But if you build this up, that if you come to Blackburn Rovers, you're going to do this and you're going to do that, and you're talking to 9, 10, 11-year-olds, then I think you really set everybody up to fail from the outset.
Yeah, Greg, thanks very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, mate. No problems.
Okay guys, so evening time here. We've come up from the academy building up to the first team facility to the indoor dome, and being obviously in the north of England, it's hammering down with rain as usual here, so we're going to come inside here. Got something interesting going on. They've got a little development game going on basically, so we've got some trialists coming in to play some of the academy boys, so we're going to speak to Dan, see exactly what's going on, and then watch the game. But also, yeah, it's good opportunity to come and see some of the other things going on, as well as the training sessions and seeing how this top academy is working.
So my name's Dan Stubberfield. I'm the under 13s, 14s lead. So yeah, I oversee those age groups.
All right, so Dan, tell us what's going on there tonight.
Yeah, tonight's a mixture of, obviously, we like giving our players different experiences, but also it's a recruitment tool as well. So yeah, just in the last week, on Saturday we had a bio-banding set of games against Man United, where the lads were sort of pitched on their maturation rather than their date of birth. Yeah. And then obviously tonight we're playing 6v6 indoors, so we're going to have sort of 2 pitches. They're all kind of trialists really at the club, and lads that have been identified, and a mixture of 13s, 14s, 15s on the opposition. Yeah. So it'll, yeah, just different formats. So
66, and what are you doing the boys? Jordan said you might be mixing them up to give everyone an opportunity to play together.
Yes, we've got some 13s playing. We've sort of thrown a challenge at them really today. So what I said to them, just obviously in the dressing room at the back, was I gave them a list of sort of 8 players that they have, but then from there they had to decide their own warm-up, right, which they've just sort of gone through, whether they gave any time to athletic stuff, whether it was just straight away the balls are out, which is what happened. They just straight away started playing. They've had to decide what the lineup is and which 2 players don't start, and then they've also had to choose their formation, and they'll make all the subs all night. So me and Tabby, we are just going to facilitate, observe, maybe give them little hints and little prompts.
Player-led.
Yes,
evening.
Yeah.
So are they academy players and trialists, or just trialists?
On the yellows? Yeah. No, on the yellows are just academy players. Right, and then the reds are all trialists. So you're playing
academy against trialists, basically, too?
Yeah, but most of them will probably have maybe 6-12 months age.
Okay, so they're a bit more
advantage.
They're older, physically more maturated. Okay, so you've got to be okay, makes sense. Okay, go on. What about, so you're going to play a led thing, let them get on with it? Any sort of particular outcomes you're looking for, or you know?
Well, I mean, the main thing we talk about a lot is our principles. So whether they've got a coach talking to them, a coach barking at them, or us silent, we would expect to see what we do and how we play and what we expect from our players with and without the ball. Now obviously with it being an indoor night, we'd expect to see a lot of 1v1 stuff, a lot of creativity, combinations, and hopefully lots of shots.
How often do you do this sort of thing here?
At least every couple of months. Right. Yeah, we train. I mean, with the trialling vehicle, they work in 8-week blocks. Right. So we would tend to, at the end of their 8-week cycle, sometimes we play 11v11 outside, and obviously we did, so the last time they came in we did 11v11, the time before we did this, but it was 7v7 last time. This time it's 6v6, so yeah, we just try and mix it up a little bit really, and you know, we might see somebody on their team that might not have stood out, might not have shone if it was 11v11 full pitch, you know, if he's a late developer. Yeah. So yeah, it just gives us a different angle, I guess, on the players.
So guys, here we go, day 2, Blackburn Rovers Academy. Looking forward to a real jam-packed day. Got the day release boys in, the YDP, so looking forward to doing that. They've just gone in to do a bit of classroom session. Then they've got an on-the-field session. They've got gym as well, analysis. They've got some individual work in the afternoon. And also then we're going to see a bit of the foundation phase this evening. So look forward to another great day. Just walking past though, this wall here reminds you of how prolific this academy is. Some top players come out of it. Shay Given, James Beattie, Damien, Duff, David Dunn, Phil Jones, David Raya here. So lots and lots of quality players coming out of this club. So like I say, really consistent player developer, really, you know, punching above its weight. So again, really privileged to be here and them open up the all access areas for us, and looking forward to another great day of Inside the Academy. Let's go.
Hiya, so I'm John Prince. I'm the Senior Youth Development Coach at Blackburn Rovers.
Okay, so John, today's day release.
Yes.
Just a little bit of a run through what's to expect for the boys today.
Yeah, well, day release is a great day that we have as part of our programme. The boys obviously really enjoy it because they get to come out of school. Yeah. We pack a lot into the day, so they do some education at the start. They do a pitch-based S&C session working on their fundamental movements. We have a football session, we have analysis, we have a gym session, and then they do an ILO based session in the afternoon. So there's a lot for them during the day, and it's more contact time for us with the players.
So what age groups are in today?
So we've got the under 15s and under 16s.
And is there other day release days as well? Do you get other age groups in?
Yeah, we have also the 13s and 14s that come in on day release. They come in tomorrow on a Wednesday.
So they'll do a similar format basically?
Very similar, yeah.
And so that 13s is the first day that you do
that's the first age group that come out of school, yeah.
So in theory then, so how much training time are those YDP boys getting from 13 upwards?
Yeah, so they're doing 4 to 5 football sessions a week. Yeah. And obviously then they've got gym sessions, analysis, and movement skill work on top of that as well.
Okay, cool. So we're looking forward to sort, in terms of the on the pitch stuff. We had the on the pitch session, and there's some sort of individual work as well in the afternoon.
Yeah, right? That's right. Yeah, so that's more position specific work that we do in the afternoon.
Okay, so how would you? I mean, we're going to see it. Just an idea how you're going to structure that in terms of what, you know, in terms of coaches, how many players you got, how much individual work that there's.
Yeah, so
some player-led stuff, coach-led stuff.
It's coach-led. So we have more staff for that because obviously you need the players in smaller groups. Okay. And the idea with that is that they get position-specific work, high repetition, 1 or 2 pitches that they get to practice that links to something individual for them that's going to help them in the 11v11.
Nice. And then so you're starting at 13. Some clubs start at 12. Any reason why you start at 13?
Well, the way we structure it here is our YDP runs 13s to 16. So we have 4 age groups at the FP. 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s, and then 4 at the YDP. Some clubs have their YDP starting at 12s, but that's just how we do it. It gives them also year 7 in school, secondary school, to settle in, and then once they've got through to year 8, then they come out with us.
Because that's the argument I've had a lot, and it's quite a convincing one, is that first year of secondary school is quite a lot of turmoil,
it's a big transition. It is, yeah.
Day release as well is quite, you know, it's quite a lot going on, isn't it? For young,
I think so.
Players?
They do need to just bed into the school. Really, it's probably the biggest change in their school career, going from primary school to secondary school. So it works well for us. What I would say with day release though is that we link very closely with the schools. We don't want them coming out of school to have a detrimental effect on their education. If there are any boys that are slipping behind at all, they stop coming in. And if there's any issues to do with discipline or behaviour at school, we also don't, you know, let them in for a period. And
we're chatting to Paul yesterday. He was telling us about sort of your tactical cycle, if you like. So 2 weeks in possession, transition week, 2 weeks out of possession, another transition week.
Yeah.
Was that the same you guys anyway?
Yeah, it's slightly different in the YDP. We sort of tend to go more 3-and-3.
Right.
So we link the in possession and transition moments together. So what we'll be doing today is we'll be looking at organised defending, so we don't have the ball, but then obviously we're trying to organise in a way to then win it and then transition into counter-attacking. So we link those two parts together, rather than looking at them in isolation.
Lovely. Cheers, John.
All right. Thanks a lot, Saul.
Okay guys, so we're up here on the AstroTurf. The AstroTurf is in the first team facility, just next to the indoor centre where we filmed last night. Like I said, the YDP boys are going to do some work here. Going to have a little bit of activation, some speed work with the S&C guy, and then into our session. And listen, the sun's out, it's glorious. Fingers crossed it stays like that, because it is a bit touch and go choppy up here in terms of the weather. So hopefully we stay dry and get the full session out here. Looking forward to this session. 4 parts, and again, so the first bit of the activation, the speed one, and then the rest led by John here. So I really look forward to this session to see what they're getting up to.
Right, building it faster, let's hit max speed at the yellow. Go. Oh, Blues are in the lead, Blues are in the lead. Oh, Jack Martin's got pace though. Nice, go on, back in, catch it up, catch it up. So my name's Connell and I'm the YDP strength and conditioning coach.
Tell us about that session you did earlier with the boys.
Yeah, so the session we did this morning then was aimed at improving max velocity, so that's your maximal sprint speed. So what we did, we always do a fun warm-up to start with, so we've got a half-hour session. Always try and make that first bit fun so it gets the lads in, they're engaged, they're enjoying it. And then we go into some like basic technique stuff. So today you've seen us do some of the A switches, which is like basic posture, basic positioning, which we use when we run at top speed. And then we built that into some longer efforts, so allowing the boys to sprint at their max speed, because we need to be hitting that in order to get ourselves faster.
How often would you do that max speed stuff in a week, for example?
So in a week, once a week, we try to hit on it, yeah, and try to get a couple of efforts in that session. And
then we chatted a bit earlier, but I mean, we talked about, you know, how important is it to work on the technique, and how much effect can you have on a player's speed?
Yeah, the technique's really important. So obviously it's a little bit different if you're training a 100-meter sprinter to a footballer. They're going to use that technique a little bit different in a game. But if we can give them the basic techniques, then that'll give them a chance to express it and use it a little bit more in a game, in the context whatever they're in.
Up and in, up and in, up and in, deeper. 1-0 to White still. That's where you've got to track them.
Good pass, well played. Good, now you can attack.
Yeah. Pressure on the man. Well done.
John Townsend, lead under 16 coach.
So John, tell us about that, the session you just put on, talk us through the session here, the first part.
Yeah, so the first part was more of a physical practice where we tried to get a lot of changes of direction. So it was, in essence, it was a 2v2 practice where the team in possession also had a target player that they could bounce off when they were trying to score in the Samba goals.
So the topic of the week is out of possession, yeah?
Yeah.
So what are the outcomes you're looking from that to get out of that 2v2?
Yeah, so we're looking at basically the players being compact and narrow and not getting split through the middle, and then just finding opportunities to apply pressure, and then when one does, the other one coming across and giving some compactness and balance.
So a bit of like pressure cover.
Pressure and cover, yeah. We didn't have the balance, we moved on to practices that did have that, but yeah, the first one was about that.
Is it, do you like coach like a high pressing philosophy here? So is that like a prevalent?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're always looking to press, and a large part of the work we've done up until this point in the season, up until probably the last week or two, has been all around pressing and forward thinking, forward pressing. However, in the last week or 2 weeks, we've started to look at, okay, that's fine, and we've had a lot of joy from that, but what about when you can't press? Because you can't always. Yeah. And we're now just trying to give them just another option, so that when they can't press, they're compact, but they're still always looking to jump from that into a press as well. So that was the work today.
And tell us about the next part of the session then.
Yes, the second part that John led was we added an extra player to the unit as well. So rather than it just being applying pressure and cover, we had a third player that was applying some balance to the practice. And then we added more of a transitional element as well. So we had the goalkeepers in towards the end of that, where the lads could, if they win it, go and shoot and score.
So John was talking about sliding across and getting across. So I mean, I imagine key things there: compactness, moving as a unit, trying to make the spaces small. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we don't want to be split. We don't want to be played through. That's the main thing. We can accept that the ball might go wide, but when it does, then we use the touchline to try and trap the team as well. So the big thing above everything was don't get played through. But as the ball does go across, you've got to get your shoulders out and get out quickly.
And then tell us about that last bit of progression, and you went into a bigger format.
Yeah, so the last bit was a game. So we ended up playing what in essence was 3 midfielders against 3 midfielders with a centre-half stepping in to give them the 4v3. So that was replicating on the occasions when we can't press, what do we do? So we've been playing 4-3-3 a lot with a sitter and 2 number 8s. So that was just working on when you can't press, the 4 has to come across and screen the striker, and it's what do the 2 8s do? Well, the other 8 drops down alongside the 4 to give us double protection. In the actual game, we'd have a winger that had come in as well, but that would be for Thursday when we're on to bigger numbers and bigger areas.
Cheers, John.
Obviously we're going to do the analysis, so it's a little bit different today. So you've had the nutrition, you've got the gym, you've got this, we've got the guys filming, so it's going to be a slightly shorter session, the analysis. So there might only be 1 or 2 people present. Normally there'd be more of you and we'd break off. So we're going to do a very quick debrief on the United game for Group 1, because I think there's 10 or 11 of you in this room played in that game. Then a couple of individual clips, and then we'll break off.
What's going on this afternoon?
So this afternoon is our second session. This is a shorter session because of physical loading.
Yeah.
So it fits really well. We do individual learning objectives. So we group the players positionally and do some position specific work. So this afternoon I'm going to be doing something with our attacking players, some finishing, and it's going to be minimal touch finishing. So ideally first time.
Okay, cool.
First time finishes, and then my colleague Eddie is going to be doing something with our midfield players, because we've got midfield players out as well. Okay. They're going to be doing some combining to finish.
So how long are you going to be out here for?
We're going to do about 20 minutes work, and then we're going to go into some small-sided stuff off the back of it. And we're actually going to link that into what we did this morning. We spoke about the fact that we needed to do, the next step really was to exploit transition opportunities. Okay. So we're going to be doing some overload games as part of that as well.
And is this a typical sort of day release program where the boys would get the position specific stuff?
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Yeah. So they have two opportunities during the week to do position specific work, and this is one of them. So yeah, so it's a different type of session to this morning, but one that they really enjoy as well.
Lovely.
Get that midline of the ball. If you get under that ball, it's going to go up. Great finish, Jack.
Yeah, Paul Gray, Senior Foundation Phase Coach here at Blackburn Rovers Academy.
So Paul, then tell us about the foundation phase here at Blackburn. Give us an idea as to sort of methodology you use here with the youngest.
Yeah, obviously we're dealing with the youngest players in the academy, and we know all about the statistics of players coming into the system who end up finally becoming professional footballers. So probably the key for us is to make sure that these boys have a fantastic experience. They run into the door absolutely desperate to come in and train, absolutely desperate to come in and play games, and just making sure that it's a really positive experience where they're going to play with and against some fantastic footballers. They're going to get to visit some unbelievable venues to play games. They're going to play against some big name opposition in world football. So it's all about those outstanding experiences and those memories that these boys are going to have for a long time. And then obviously the byproduct of that is that some of them are going to push on and they might eventually get to where they want to get to.
Give us an idea of what a typical session might look like in the under-9s, for example, for like a Blackburn Rovers player.
Yeah, so lots of variety. There'll be a good mixture of technical practices, where the practices will be quite closed, and be working on lots of repetitions to improve the key technical elements of the game. Then there'll be lots of 1v1s, small number practices, overloads, underloads, and then linking the technical practices and the small skill practices into a few small-sided games as well. So we try and keep the numbers as small as possible, so there's lots of repetition of the techniques, lots of repetition of skills, and then they can then go out and they can explore stuff in small-sided games and relevant games on a match day.
And I mean, how do you, so you train 3 times a week and play a game on all Sunday, I presume?
Yep.
So how do you split that week up? Do you have like topics for each night? Do you have like a tactical cycle for the month of the week? I mean, how does that sort of work? Yeah, so something that's slightly changed this season, we now have a 6-week coaching programme, and that 6 weeks is basically, it's the same as the rest of the academy. It's split into 2 weeks of in possession, so with the ball, we call it organised attack. Then there's a week of transition, so it's going from attacking to defending, and then there's 2 weeks of defensive stuff, so organised defending, and then a final week of transition, so transition from defending to attacking. So that's how the 6 weeks is broken down. We then have a review week at the end of that, so week 7 of the programme, if you like. We can revisit any stuff that we think that the boys might need to work on a little bit more, and it just gives us a bit of breathing time to review how the 6 weeks have gone, and then we repeat the cycle again. So 2 weeks in possession, a transition week, 2 weeks out of possession, defending if you like,
yep.
And then 1 week another transition week.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you make that specific to the 9s, which makes what the 9s doing that the 13s aren't doing, in terms of how do you make that age specific, if you like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the game model runs throughout the club, right? So that's the stuff that the first team are working on, the under 9s are working on, but it's a much more watered down version, if you like. So we've got to make sure that we look at the player profiles for the first team players. What does a first team player need? And then that will go filter down into what a PDP player will need, what a YDP player will need, and then what a foundation phase player will need. And it's probably pretty basic stuff that we're looking for in the foundation phase. So our coaching programme, if you like, is taken from those player profiles. What are the key things that an under 9 player will need? And that's how we build the coaching programme. So, first touch, receiving skills, short passing techniques, 1v1 moves and skills. So yeah, that's how the coaching programme is made for the foundation phase players.
And I mean, what's the transition look like from 9s to 11s? I mean, what's the difference in approach there? Is there any difference in what the players are doing in between those age groups?
The programme is very, very similar. So the coaching programme will stay the same, but in effect, our curriculum is like a spiral curriculum. So it's 6 weeks working on the programme, and then I get the review week, then we go again with another 6 weeks, and all we're trying to do really is just layer bits on all the time. So we're kind of building from that first week that they come into 9s, and we just keep layering things on, working on the same topics, working on with similar practices, and just adding bits in all the time really.
And you're quite sort of a unique position in terms of you're surrounded by big clubs here,
yeah.
Big Category 1, Premier League giants. I mean, what do you say? We all know, the pressures of recruitment. What do you say to parents to say why they should come to Blackburn and maybe then choosing one of the other big clubs maybe? Yeah,
absolutely. Like you say, this is probably one of the hotbeds in English football, really, and it's tough when you're surrounded by the 2 big Manchester clubs, the 2 big Liverpool clubs. But what we say here at Blackburn Rovers, it's more of a family feel. You know, you are part of our Blackburn Rovers family. When we sign players at the foundation phase, when we say to an 8-year-old, we want to sign you at Blackburn Rovers, pretty much at the it is at the moment, that's a promise of you will be here with us for at least 3 years. So 9s, 10s and 11s, we say to the parents, you know, that is our commitment to you. We're not gonna throw someone away who we signed at 8 years old and then at 9 years old say, oh no, sorry, you're not good enough anymore. You know, we will give them that
that's
commitment.
Quite interesting, 'cause that's quite unique, isn't it? I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, and I think that might even change a little bit more with some of the new developments that are going to perhaps happen in the club in the near future. But I think psychological safety is something that gets talked about more and more. One thing that we want the players here to be comfortable, to be able to experiment, to try new things, and if they've got that fear hanging over them every year at retain and release time, we're not sure if players are going to feel psychologically safe, and probably more so parents, and we know where a lot of the pressure comes from. You know, quite often it's the parents worrying about retain and release at the end of every season.
And that's quite interesting because Greg's almost used those same words there, and he's talked about earlier, which I talked with Greg, the director of football. He said the same thing about, you know, is that an environment where players will try and be courageous and make mistakes? So is this obviously then this is a club-wide sort of, you know, consistent cultural thing you go like DNA of the club? Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we've gone through probably over the last year to 18 months. It's something that's been talked about from top to bottom, and it's probably something that although we feel we're quite good at it now, it's something that we want to get even better at, and we want an environment where the players do feel safe, and that, you know, we trust them and we believe in them, and you know, and we feel like that's going to be the best environment for them young players to flourish in. How do you balance the, you know, individual possession with group possession, particularly with the youngest age groups? I mean, you talked about all those skills, the techniques, the 1v1 skills. How much of your program, particularly the 9s, is weighted towards individual possession, and how much with like the group possession, like, you know what I mean, in terms of the pass and the move of the group, where rondos or group possession sort of stuff, if that makes sense? Yeah, I think it's something that coaches and clubs have wrestled with for a long time. I think we all know that there are certain clubs, here, especially here in the Northwest, who are absolutely more down the route of it's all about the individual player. An academy is a dog-eat-dog. We're trying to just create top individual players, and they'll encourage their foundation phase players to get on the ball and just go with it. And then there's other clubs who are you know, probably more possession based and will want to keep the ball more, and it's about the team and how the team do, and you know, and making them good decisions. But I think we're probably somewhere in the middle, I would say. Yeah, we want some players to be outstanding technically and be able to keep possession of the ball on their own, stay on the ball. But we also want them to be good decision makers as well. So, and I think at the foundation phase, I think it's just striking the balance right, not being too far down one side and not being too far down the other side. And each player is absolutely an individual, and what's right for one player, you know, might be a little bit different for another player. And I would, you know, and also going to ask, you know, you've been using the My Personal Football Coach app for a few years now. What's your, I mean, why did you choose to use the My Personal Football Coach app, and what does it bring to the club? Yeah, I think we only have a limited amount of time with the players, right? You know, we're quite lucky. We're a Category 1 club, and we do have pretty good training hours, but they're not with us all the time, and we just feel it's important that in that time away from us, the players can go and do something on their own, in their own spare time, you know, and they've got loads of ideas at the touch of you know, just get the smartphone or get their iPad out, and they can go and they can put on their own practices. So that's been a massive help to us. It's also helped the coaches as well. So where we are situated geographically, it's sometimes tough for parents to get their kids from Manchester or Liverpool or other places in Lancashire
So a lot will set off straight from school to avoid traffic. So we get a lot of players here quite early at times, and then other players who are here late. And so one of the other ways we've used the app is the coaches are really clear on, right, this week we're going to be working on this skill, this skill, this skill from my personal football coach, and they just set them practices up. The children know at the beginning of the week, so we'll send a message out to the parents, this is what we're working on this week from my personal football coach, and they can come, they can arrive if they're there early, and they're there and they just set up the practices themselves, and then they're doing them. So.
Yourself, you're doing a bit on the app yourself, getting your ball skills out.
I know if I'm getting a little bit old for that now.
Nice one, Paul. Appreciate it, mate.
Brilliant.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Saul.
much.
Michael Cribley, Head of Academy Recruitment.
Tell us about your role here then at the club.
So predominantly my role is to oversee all the scouting network that we have, whether that be from under 6 right the way through to under 18. There's more of a focus within the Northwest. And managing the network of scouts that we have there and linking in closely with the emerging talent manager who looks after the 17s to 21s. So there's a bit of a crossover there, but it tends to be more outside the Northwest and looking nationally. And
tell us, give us an idea about how big is your scouting network, for example, at the club? I mean, compared to when you said you experienced at other clubs as well. What's it like here in this club?
It's probably a smaller network overall. We've predominantly Northwest based. The scouts, we have about 30 scouts, and that's broken down to 6 casuals, about 24 casuals and 6 senior scouts.
Right.
So the senior scouts are more regional based. Yeah. So we have some in who look after Lancashire, Merseyside, Greater Manchester, Yorkshire being the 4 big areas. Then they have casual scouts who report into them, but we can distribute them anywhere really.
And so tell us what sort of things you're looking for in a player. What sort of thing is a Blackburn Rovers player? What are the qualities you're looking for?
A lot of what we're looking for is in line with the player profiles, linking in from what the first team has set. So each position has different characteristics that we're looking for, and then that filters down into the younger age groups. Obviously it's less detailed into the foundation phase and the pre-academy, where we're just looking for athleticism and technique, but then you get a little bit more meat on the bone as they get older, and it all falls in line to what the first team want really. So obviously athleticism and technique's big, but obviously we want ones who've got a good attitude and a good work ethic. I think work ethic's a big theme throughout the club. What they do on the ball and off the ball is quite important.
And tell us about, you're in quite a unique position here because you're almost nestled between, you've got the big clubs in Liverpool, the big clubs in Manchester. I mean, you all know how aggressive academy recruitment is. How do you, thrive within that, within all those clubs around you? Plus, you've got all the other clubs as well. I mean, it must be a challenge for you. But how do you differentiate yourself from them guys, if that makes sense? What's the difference? What's your USP?
Yeah. Obviously, we've got a good pathway here. So, players from the outside know that we sell that quite big when they come in through the door. But we have good relationships with the other clubs as well. So although we're working against them and trying to get the best we can, we do work with them because we want some boys that come out of them clubs. Right. It's important to be the first port of call for anyone coming out of your Man United, your Man Cities, Liverpools, Everton, because they do have good players. How we do it different, they probably have enough staff to, focus on every area. We'll be a little bit more specific on what we focus in, so we get the best we can in pre-academy, but there's probably more of a focus in Lancashire there, and then we tend to pick up the next number of players, 11 to 14 grassroots. We're probably as good as them at picking up them because we have a real clear target of adding to the groups at them ages, along with what they release at 12 and 14 as well, because they're key age groups of retain and release really.
What about international players? I mean, obviously David Raya came out of here famously. You've had a lot of success with boys from around the country and Canada and also in Ireland and stuff.
Yeah.
How important is that, and how do you approach that, and in terms of weaving those players in with the local boys?
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult now with Brexit, so we can't sign them at 16 like they could previously. David Raya come through the link that we had with Cornea all them years back, which wouldn't work now because of the rules around Brexit. So it's probably more focused covering like the international tournaments, and then it's doing like the pre-work for when you can sign them at 18.
Right.
That's probably where we put our efforts in, really. And then we pass it on to the first team.
So with you, I'm just interested, so in terms of are you still bringing 18, 19-year-olds in, and in terms of their academy player, but obviously they're pros then, aren't they? So what do you work, when does your remit stop, if you like, and when you stop, is it just, are you still getting the older players in to get into the 21s, or is that more the first team pro?
Yeah, so we've got a head of emerging talent who oversees that part of it. Obviously, up to 18 in and around the youth team is what I'll oversee. Then Paul will take over from like the emerging talent ages, up around the 21s. But if we get the work right, younger down, there's not as big as emphasis to add to it to make the numbers up. And then anyone who comes in around them ages now, it's probably been first team signings, really.
And we were talking to Paul Gray yesterday. He was saying, in terms of, I said, what's your USP? He said that, this is a real family-orientated club. That's maybe the difference between one of the, these big, Premier League superstar, international teams. Is that maybe the bit of difference you have here, that you can make the connections a bit more of a close-knit family type environment?
Yeah, I think you probably see like a smaller building, smaller amount of staff. Everyone speaks a little bit more because of that, what that creates. Obviously, when I was at Everton, it was a bigger building, more staff. You don't see each other as much. You don't talk in as much detail as what you do here, and everyone seems to be more on the same page here, all working towards the one goal. And like everyone seems to know the kids' names, like little things like that, rather than they're just another player. They come in and out. Everyone in the building will know most of the players' names, which is quite important.
How important is it being a Cat 1 academy in terms of keeping your players, in terms of being able to isolate yourself from those big neighbours you have?
Being Cat 1's massive in terms of the games programme at 18s, 21s, retaining players. If we didn't have that, we'd lose players. But from a recruitment point of view, if we wasn't Cat 1, then it hinder us, if that makes sense. It'd be a lot more difficult in terms of getting them in, the facilities that you need, the amount of staff that we would have. It's massive to be Cat 1, more so for the training compensation as well. We've got some good players, and if we weren't Cat 1, they could go for like half the price.
Right.
So it's really important that we retain that.
So guys, yeah, really interesting chat there with the head of recruitment. Really interesting to see, how this club not only survives but strives, in this environment where they're surrounded by big super clubs, and obviously they've got a pathway to the first team and a prolific track record of producing players. So really good to see. But now we're going to head up for the last session, back to the first team complex up the road there to the AstroTurf to see the foundation phase work. Eddie's going to put a session on with the youngest. A nice way to finish the trip, really. Seeing the whole academy work there. We've gone from, we've seen the oldest boys, the YDP, and now for the foundation phase. So great to finish it off. Really looking forward to it. But yes, it's been so far so good.
Eddie Stanford, I'm one of the lead foundation phase coaches at Blackburn. Yeah, so ILO's at the beginning, so just the individual learning objectives for the players. It was based on more shooting, so we looked at shift and shoot, so little aspects of it. We did a combination of things from wide of the box to in more central areas as well. So just looking at little details in and around how we get defenders off balance to be in a position to shift and shoot. We also looked at combining across the box. And the third one we looked at was play receiving, kind of movements off the ball and almost like a disguise combination where we turn and shot ourselves. So they were the three kind of combinations and areas of work we looked at. And we set it up in a variety of ways really, so there wasn't one set way, but just basically in a position where that would be relevant to the game, positions that they'd be receiving and combining in and around the box. So that's pretty much how the setup was. Then we went into an opposed practice, so obviously our theme for the week is organised defending. First session of the week would always start in a defensive third, then it followed by tomorrow night being in the middle, and then obviously the weekend that'll follow up with the final third where we're more high pressing. So tonight's session was more about being compact in and around the box in our defensive third, looking at various scenarios as well, so balls going over the top, balls in wide areas, and how we're reacting in certain scenarios of the pitch in defensive third. So again, yeah, similar setup, defensive third. We started with 2 centre backs and a screener, so all relevant to the players at the weekend and stuff that we're doing on a constant basis in the games. So we just looking around, dealing with different scenarios that they might come across within a weekend's game. So just linking it back into the small-sided games. On a Tuesday night we do more kind of small-sided games for repetition. So if you notice, everything throughout was always small numbers, just purely to get the repetition in. So within the small-sided games, we favour doing those types of works, especially linking in with small practices, just to give them more repetition of defending and actually practising what they've just been working on in smaller numbers, seeing if it links in with the game and how many times they bring out that kind of work on a constant basis and constantly getting tested under pressure.
So guys, what an inspiring couple of days here at this top class academy. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to the academy manager Stuart, Jordan, head of coaching, and obviously Greg Broughton, the director of football here, who've given us this access all areas to this top class academy. Really, it's really humbling to come to places like this and see such top practitioners work. People are really obsessed with player development, and you know, an academy like this has got a real prolific track record about producing players, but also a real pathway for the players that are coming through, and both of those things are really unique in academy football. So like I said, it's been a pleasure and a real privilege to be let in here and see what goes on. But like I say, remember, like and subscribe and share, and remember to turn on notifications, because the next Inside Academy is just around the corner. But master the ball, master the game. I'll see you next time.